Hey, this is Xav de Matos from Joystiq.com, and I'm with Mr. Chris Roberts. How are you, Chris?
I am doing good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you enjoying PAX so far?
I'm having a great time at PAX. We've been having, we showed off the dogfighting module Thursday night, and I think people liked it. We're showing it down the Logitech booth right now, and it's actually really great to spend time and meet all the people that have been backing our game, and just to feel and hear the enthusiasm, like kind of makes all the hard work worth it. So it's great. We're having a good time.
Also joined by Erin Roberts, who's joined the Cloud Imperium team officially now.
Oh yeah, now for the last 3-4 months. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's great to be here.
And what is your team specifically working on?
We're working on Squadron 42, but Squadron 42 is the big military campaign. But also because of that, we're working on a bunch of the stuff in terms of the dogfighting module as well. Because a lot of the stuff in the dogfighting module will be used in Squadron 42.
Yeah. So our dogfighting. I mean, a lot of the work that happened in the dogfighting was a lot. The Foundry, like basically all the studios worked pretty hard on it, but probably the two ones that worked the closest was the UK team and the team out in LA.
So if everyone's heard about Star Citizen, it's made almost $42 million. I think by the time we finish this interview, it'll probably be at $42 million. But I think one of the questions people always have for it is, what is the final game going to be? What does Star Citizen look like when that last module has been released? So what is the elevator pitch, if you will, of what Star Citizen is?
How long's our elevator ride? Well, for me, I mean, if I was going to give you the simple elevator pitch was, I saw Star Wars when I was 8, and I would have always wanted to be Han Solo, going between planets, doing whatever I wanted to do, living the dream out in space. So I would say that Star Citizen is that's the idea. I mean, essentially, you get to choose who you want to be. I mean, whatever you want to do, it's sort of dependent on the actions you do and the ship that you own or the ships that you own. So you can be a merchant, you can be a mercenary, you could be a bounty hunter, you can be a pirate. You could be someone pushing a loud trolley if you want. But probably not. That may not be so much fun.
Space trolley sounds pretty good.
Yeah. The core gameplay, is not too dissimilar to, say, some of my older games that I did, like Privateer or Freelancer, in that you sort of start on a planet. You can buy and sell some goods, or take a mission on that will pay you, and then you take it to another planet and sell the goods, or get paid for the mission that you achieve, maybe escorting a ship or taking out a pirate, and then you use that money to buy better equipment for your ship, or possibly ultimately upgrade your ship to another ship, or buy a new ship, and then you sort of work your way through. And then the difference between sort of that and what Star Citizen is Star Citizen just has a level of detail, a nuance that like none of the other games do. So first of all, it's full first person, high fidelity, next gen, everywhere, down on the planet, walking around in first person, getting into your ship, flying it. Now, we're going to have multi-crewed ships where, like, it's not just the old sort of Wing Commander Freelance style, just you, one person in a cockpit and can't walk around it. Like, it'll be like, walking around the Millennium Falcon or something. You can get up out of your seat, go back, someone can get in the turret, you can, go back, rest in the bed or whatever. It's so almost like a full sort of space simulator, so to speak.
It sounds like a good genre
I think
title for them to start using.
Exactly, let's use Space Sim. And the idea is that it's sort of going to be much more freeform, so a huge sandbox with a lot of possibility, and our goal is to make it very player generated in terms of sort of a lot of what's happening in the galaxy. So we have a dynamic economy that really will dictate a lot of what's happening in terms of what missions are being generated, what opportunities you have, and then the player base themselves will have a lot of different things they can do that can affect the economy to a certain extent, but also kind of like the narrative or drama of the universe. So we're going to be very reactive to what the players are doing, and then we have some level of kind of story and scripted stuff that we put into. So I think ultimately, if we get all the features in there, it will be hopefully a pretty fun game for everyone.
Now, Erin, you are coming onto the project over the last couple of months from Traveler's Tales, working on the Lego franchise. Well, so how does what you were working on before sort of help your process and the team that you're working with right now?
I mean, I think just in terms of, I mean, we're just coming off the back of the one thing we were very good at Traveller's Tales was basically managing the process of getting games out in a regular fashion and so forth. And so we have to learn a lot of discipline about what we have, what has to be achieved, when it has to be achieved by, and basically, and also the management process of making that happen. So that's like something which basically kind of like I can bring to the table a lot and that sort of stuff. And also because the organisation is so spread out around the world, it's really important that that sort of process works really well. And so because our organisation works really, really well. In fact, this last sort of week, actually, when you get because we're in different time zones, that can be a hindrance, but it can actually be really helpful as well if you basically manage it right. And so in the UK, we start first, obviously, in development, and we've got a system where we can start and we can work, and then we have a proper handoff to the rest of the organisation where you get on. The whole organisation runs through Skype. I mean, everyone, wherever they are in time zones, they're always instant messaging on Skype. They're on Skype talking to each other and stuff and things like that. But then we also have proper handoffs where we go and say, right, this is what we've done, this is what we've achieved, this is where the project's up to, and then these are the issues we see. Can you look at these while we're sleeping? And then so Austin and LA will then take it and then they'll work on it, and then when they finish up they do the same and it comes back to the UK. And so what you actually have is almost 24-hour development when it's run properly, and that's one of the key things which we're really getting going in the organisation, which actually means that we can get through huge amounts of stuff very quickly as long as that communication's there. So that's one of the main things.
So last question for you, because I know I'm sure you have a lot more to do today. Having gone through this process and having been successful with Star Citizen, and I know that this is not like just a game that you're going to release and forget about. It's going to be a platform. But could you ever go back to the traditional model again?
No, not at all. I don't foresee myself going out and saying, I'm going to do this different game, because Star Citizen, I think, is like a many-year commitment. And it's going to, even when we have it finished, quotation marks, there's lots of extra stuff that needs to happen. So it's definitely going to be this is like going off and doing Lord of the Rings, and you got to you're going off to New Zealand for 5 years and you're not coming back until you've shot all the movies. But yeah, I wouldn't go. But I mean, I just the ability to connect with the people and have them participate and help fund getting the game made, that it just feels a much purer way of doing it. Yes, it has some issues in terms of you've got a lot of people and a lot of voices, but I'm telling you, it's just great. I mean, just being down on the show floor, meeting the people, how excited they are, seeing Star Citizen and Squadron 42 T-shirts on loads of people walking around. I mean, that's we don't even have a game out yet. It's like it's I don't know how to describe it, but as much fun as it was making my old Wing Commanders, doing all the rest of stuff, there's something that feels really special about it, and
I feel connected. We actually do feel really connected to the community and stuff. So that's the big thing for me is I've done years of working, and you do something, you think it's good, but you have no idea until it goes out there, see how it's been received and that kind of stuff. Things on here, not only are we connected to people, and so they're involved in helping make the game, but also we get feedback. We can put stuff out there and we get the feedback and we can see what people think, and it actually then helps us make better decisions going forward. And for me specifically, Squadron 42, I'm going to use all the info we get from the dogfighting module, from the first person stuff we do later and so forth, and I know when Squadron 42 comes out that all that space combat stuff will be really good, because we're going to have all that data, we're going to have all the feedback, we know what people like, what they don't like, and so we can go out there and feel good about these ships are balanced well, this is going to work well, all these kind of different for these different reasons.
There was a video that someone took of your demo at the event on Thursday night, and so there some of it was cut out, but obviously the beginning survived that person's cut, showing you soaring triumphantly towards a piece of debris in space. And someone in our comments said, I love the game, it looks fantastic, but I think it's funny that Chris Roberts can't play a space sim. Because he crashed right into it.
Well, that's not fair. I popped out to an exterior view, swung the camera around, so I was looking back at the ship, so I couldn't actually, it wasn't seeing where I went. So I went straight into, it's basically, you should always look where you're going, and I wasn't looking where I was going.
It's a good baseline, I think. How, since that video's come out, and obviously...
Plus I need to be human. You don't want me to be...
Sure, exactly. But since that video's come out, and since obviously the people in the video freaking out, but what has the response been from the community? People have seen it, and
it's been great. I mean, like I mentioned, we planned. Everyone worked really hard, and we've done a bunch of stuff we're really proud of, and we actually were kind of bummed on the night because whole like multiplayer match side, we just had a bad. So we have this sort of CDN patching system, which is what the hangar and all the other stuff gets patched with.
Yeah.
And it also delivers all our dev builds. And it happened to be that anyway, there's the patcher hard disk whatever in Austin ran out of disk space. It corrupted the patch, sent the patch down. So we had bad patches on all this stuff, and we've got a big data footprint. And so we're in the venue, which doesn't have particularly fast internet, and we've got all these machines that have bad data footprints, and we're like, oh my god! And so we were trying desperately to fix it. So we didn't have enough time to push a new build up, because like it's a whole process. It has to be built, gets pushed up, and then pushed out into the patcher and delivered over the CDN system. So that's not something that you does in like half an hour, even 2 hours. It's like a half a day process. So like we didn't have time for that. So then we were desperately like trying to like download and we were trying to figure out what parts exactly were corrupted. So we were downloading all these different bits and trying them all out, which is why our thing was delayed by half an hour, and why you could see everyone on the stage looking at computers and doing stuff. And it's just, we've got such a big data footprint, especially at this point, because we're not particularly well optimized, that it was a problem. So like we got the sort of base demo stuff going, that was fine. And the multiplayer stuff, we didn't have time to like actually test, so we thought hopefully it's going to work. And we didn't even get to show like the matchmaking and a bunch of the other stuff, because you go in the hangar, you get in your ship, and it like boots up the HUD, and you get matchmaking screen, like you're connecting to Arena Commander, then you do your match, and then bam, it launches you into the space game. And so all of that, like we wanted to show, and we didn't, and then we thought, okay, we have to bypass that, because we only had the executable that did this, we didn't have the one to do the full thing, and then we ran that, and of course, like I started up and my ship wouldn't move, and then then we did a couple other things. I tried to respawn, that didn't work, and then the whole thing just crashed. So like basically my multiplayer demo on the one thing where everyone had the cameras focused, it was like I basically, I was like, I got shot.
We got two players in there. I mean, I think there was a problem.
I don't know. I think everyone, like, apparently, someone was telling me they got, like, I said, that's bullshit, let's go again. And that was apparently now some internet meme from me. But yeah, so it was just disappointing, because I wanted to show the full thing. But everyone that was there, they A, really enjoyed it, and B, people got to play on the machines on front afterwards. And so I thought, oh my god, but the next day, like all the response, the press response was, oh my god, it looks amazing. I mean, I can't remember, there was one Cinema Blend thing that says, Star Citizen isn't a scam, it's awesome. Which is, I was like, oh, okay, that's great, because everyone's like, oh, you're giving people all these money, they're off to the Bahamas, they're not actually making a game. But, no, we are. There's like a lot of people working really hard to try and make a really great game, and really passionate about it. So it was nice, and so the responses, and everyone downstairs at Logitech was playing sort of the swarm mode, which is sort of waves of AI just flying around, saying, "Oh my god, it looks great," and it does. I mean, part of our problem is that we sort of sit with it all the time, so we don't realize like quite what the impact of how good it looks. And this is still very early in this, the process. So I mean, this is only going to get better.
This is pre-alpha, right?
Way pre-alpha, yeah. So
the stuff we have now, it's there's so much other stuff we want to put in there, which is going to look just amazing. So. Because actually, a lot of the stuff you're seeing now was actually worked on in the UK and stuff.
The environments were all done. Like the Dying Star, the Broken Moon was all those two environments were designed and built in the UK. So there's some really brilliant, talented artists doing that. And so yeah, I mean, it's been really nice to see people's positive responses when we thought we'd kind of messed it up on
But I think sometimes in your head you have a way you want things to go, and when they don't work out, it does just pull you down a bit. So at the time we were just going, no, it won't happen. But the good thing was, it looks great. So, and people see that, and also we forget that there are a lot of people out there who are just going, well, are they actually working on anything? And so when you actually go, like, here, look at this, it looks good, then it does help a lot. And then just being brilliant, and also the support from the community is amazing. I mean, people just really, they actually can see what we're trying to do, and also it's just like I love being able to be 100% honest about everything. And when you work for a publisher, sometimes, not that you know it's a lie, but there's certain things you're allowed to talk about, you're not allowed to talk about, and you have to come to stuff. So we can just be absolutely honest. This is where we are. This is what we're doing. And and then everybody comes and asks questions. You say, well, I think we might do this, we might do that, and no one's going to say, well, you can't say that. It's like, no, well, come on, that's what we want to do. And then get information out there. It's like nice to be able to say to people, they ask a question, go, you know what? We're actually going to write a big design document about that, and I think we're going to try and publish that in a few weeks, and then it'd be great to have your feedback. And it's that kind of stuff where you can do, and it's just a fun way of working. It's great.
I think we had a conversation, Chris, at E3 about sort of, obviously, having gone through the publisher system and knowing that model, you were talking about how some of that stuff became really frustrating because there were certain things that you thought you wanted to do or franchises you wanted to take in a certain direction. You just felt like you couldn't do that. Why did this project come? How did this project come about for you to think that this was something that you wanted to try?
I mean, that's definitely true on the publisher side. I mean, I think that was. I mean, for this one, for Star Citizen, I always felt like I couldn't do it inside a publisher setup. So I felt like it was going to be online, it was digital, it was going to go straight to basically the people that played it. So, I mean, I actually had a couple of offers from publishers to say, oh yeah, we'll back you to do something like that. But for me, I was like, I'm not sure what the advantage of that would be, because I don't think I'm going to, if I'm doing that with a bigger publisher, I don't think they're going to, help me out, and then I'm going to get constrained, and then there's going to be baggage that will come with it. And I do, like Erin says, I like the fact that we've got, all we care about is making Star Citizen great, right? And I think everyone that's backed the game, that's all they want. They want to have a really great game, and they don't have all these other agendas that go on that you have in bigger companies, whereas they want to fit you in a release schedule here, or they've done some promotion deal with someone over here for this, or they've got this other one of their titles on this date, so you have to be on this date. All those things we don't worry about. We just worry about, but we need to make something great. We want to have something that we're happy with, and we also have something that the majority of our backers are happy with. I mean, we know we can't please everyone all the time. It's impossible with a large group, but I think they all just want to see something really great, and so we don't. So we're not thinking about commerciality for it, right? So one of the nice things that you've got with people backing it the level they have is there's no question mark of, oh, is this going to be commercial? Are people going to want to because that's what happens at a publisher. It's like, well, we have to justify the marketing budget and the development budget. So, is this commercial enough, right? So most publishers before, what we've done with Star Citizen will be like, space, no one wants a space sim. That can't sell enough units. That's not commercial enough. Make it a military shooter. All that kind of stuff that happens because people don't know how much it's going to sell. Yeah. And it's all based on what happened in the past. And really, I think the bottom line is people want a great game. And so, you don't have even the opportunity in the publisher setup to sort of prove that, hey, what if I made a space sim and it was up to date with today's technology and a good game? It would be something that everybody would want to play. You don't have that opportunity. They basically cut you off at the knees before you even get there and say, no, there's been no space sim that sold any units in the last 10 years. No one wants space sims. Forget about it.
Is it a reliance on data that they think, oh, well, we've crunched the numbers, and it just doesn't seem like...
It's 100% reliance on data. Like all marketing and sales departments at all the big publishers, none of them go on instinct. They all go on sales data. And the sales data is all predicated by what last year's stuff was. And most of that's because last year's stuff was a sequel of some other thing, and the big sequels get the budgets and they get the marketing dollars, and so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you can't. There's no one's actually taking any risks, and no one's doing anything new. Typically, unless there's one or two people who maybe have the credibility to can go out and do that, and they'll get backed for that stuff. But most of the time,
there are very few people that. I mean, I actually think the Titanfall, would have not happened to Activision, right? They quit because they were getting forced into doing the Call of Duties and wanted to do their own thing. Went to EA, and EA was just happy to get the Titanfall, to get the Call of Duty guys, and so okay, you can do Titanfall, and now obviously I think it's working out fairly well for EA. But that's kind of the frustration I think for a lot of creative people is you get into this, okay, this is it. Well, let's make another one of those. And it's fun for a while, but sometimes you want to try some different stuff, and publishers aren't so good at that.
Do you remember when you sort of burnt out on the system? Because you left for a while and focused on other projects. Do you remember what it was that made you decide to just leave gaming for a little bit? And
well, it was Microsoft bought Digital Anvil, and I just was finding I was spending too much time managing in the corporate politics and the structure, and it not really enough time making games, right? So this is what I like about Star Citizen. All I'm doing is making Star Citizen. The company is Star Citizen. There's no difference. It's not like we're part of some publisher and there's all this other stuff. It's everything is completely Star Citizen, right? It's it's just Star Citizen is Cloud Imperium, and at the end when Microsoft bought Digital Anvil, I didn't want to spend my time being a studio manager, going up to Redmond and meetings, which I was doing a lot before they even bought us because they were main investor and main funder. and I was hardly spending any time like really doing what I like, which would be like working on freelancer or something. And so I just sort of got burnt out, and I could see the pattern at the time where, Microsoft boys, because they wanted more Xbox development stuff, so they didn't want to. So they were moving away from the PC, so they wanted things they thought would work well on consoles. So that wouldn't be a freelancer style game; that would be a sort of more shooter style game, and it just sort of, I felt like the tech wasn't quite there for me to do stuff that was really exciting me, and so I just sort of felt like the industry felt like it was stagnating to me, and it didn't feel alive. Like when I was first making games with Origin, it sort of felt like the wild, wild west, and you were like figuring your stuff out as you went along, and then it got to this point where you had to be sort of absorbed into a bigger company to afford the budgets to actually make something decent, and then it was very sort of kind of corporate and like what's this and fitting inside the structure, and so one of the reasons why I came back was just that I felt A, the technology had changed, and B, I felt there was a fundamental shift in the business model that like you could take advantage of going straight to the game and straight to the consumer with the whole digital distribution and the crowdfunding side of it, or even sort of the early alpha sale side of it, where you never could have done this 10 years ago when I left. So the combination of sort of the business model itself changing and the technologies getting to the point where I thought, okay, I could really do something that was interesting to me and build a world of the fidelity that I want to build, were the two things that sort of brought me back. Because I'm sort of motivated. I'm not really motivated by like money. I'm motivated by what's creatively interesting for me. So the moment I got burned out on the game business, that was sort of when I sort of went, okay, I'm getting more interested in exploring movie stuff, and now I'm sort of the game business is far more interesting for me than the movie. I really feel like I can build this whole universe and a fidelity that I couldn't even do in a movie, which is brilliant.
And Star Citizen is, we've talked a little bit about comparing it somewhat to CCP and EVE Online. It's more of a platform at this point for you guys. You're adding to that this platform of Star Citizen and adding more content for those people.
Yeah, it's a community. I mean, it's a universe, right? So I don't view it as a game, a solo, like some game you buy and you play for a week or something. It's like you sort of commit to Star Citizen, the universe, and we're going to be delivering content continually for it. So even after we've finished the game, right, where we've got all the elements of the game together and you've got the full persistent universe that you can adventure around in, we plan to constantly add new content and features, and it will grow. I mean, if you look at you mentioned EVE Online. EVE Online now compared to EVE Online 10 years ago, it's a very different looking game. They've continually improved it, made it look better, added more features, and that's something that, like on Star Citizen, we're definitely planning to do. I mean, just getting it to the baseline is only the start. We're going to add a lot more features, content as we go along, and hopefully grow it into. If we could only last as long as EVE Online or like World of Warcraft, would be super happy.
It's been not too long since your Kickstarter launched. I mean, in a very short amount of time, you've collected a lot of money from the community. And obviously there's a lot of pressure on making a great product for these people who have invested in it or invested their money in it. Does every dollar that comes into it just add more pressure to, like, we have to make sure this is going to work, because there's a lot of people who have really put their all into it.
I think the pressure's already there. I mean, I think the thing right now is that the extra money probably maybe reduces the pressure a bit, because I sort of feel like, okay, we can sort of afford to do this right now. There was some case, like certainly if we'd like only had $10 or $15 million, I would be like, I'm going to have to make some compromises in some areas and have it not the way I want it until later on when we get some more money in and then I can improve it. Mm-hmm. So the extra money sort of made me feel like, okay, well, you know what, I can really afford to make sure that this is done right. It's simple things, right? Just having a bit of extra money means you can hire the best people, right? So like Erin's a great example. I got to bring him on board because I had some more money. If I didn't have that much money, I couldn't have him on board. The game's going to be better because I've got Erin and a bunch of his team were super talented, have made this kind of game before, been shipping 80, 90 Metacritic plus games for the last 7 years. And I want to be able to sort of get there because I was sort of on a much more shoestring budget. So the extra money's good. I mean, especially since we're shooting for level ambition, it's also going to mean that we can deliver a better experience for the backers, because we can, like, for instance, early on now we can do more and like actually have servers and stuff up and running in a way that maybe we wouldn't have done if we didn't have as much money. Right. So it's good, but there's still pressure. I mean, I just don't know. For me, whether I had 10 million or 40 million, for me, it's the same level of pressure. I don't want to let those people down. I want to deliver a good game. And it's also my own personal thing. I don't want to spend this amount of effort and time working on something that I'm not happy with or I'm not proud of. That's the most frustrating. Like, for most creative people will tell you that, like, making a game that you're making your thing, you got to be happy with it. If you're not happy with it, then you sort of feel like you wasted your time. So,
we talked at E3, and at that point, you were saying that the vision that you had in your mind for the game, it was a $25 million vision. If you got this $25 million, you can deliver on this game that you were thinking of. What is the $25 million version of it versus now the $42 million version? What is in the game now that couldn't have been done at $25 million?
Well, we're certainly taking the fidelity of some of the stuff we're doing at a much higher level as well. So it allows you to take, there's lots of different things. I mean, like what we're doing in Squadron 42 is now much bigger than what we were planning. We're doing in terms of the level of the animation, facial mocap, all those kind of things. We're going to take to a level which is, we want to push it to a level which people haven't seen before in games. So all those things and all that stuff costs money. We're basically planning to have a bunch of voice acting stuff on the mission design side. What we're doing, we're really going to push them much further. Like I said, we get more people involved in the process. We have more ships because creating the big kill for us is actually the content creation. Outside of everything else, the thing that frightens me daily is the content we have to create, because when we make a ship, it's not like the old days you just made a ship and then you pretty much had the exterior, but that was it. And now we actually have to make a ship. We have to make it this incredible fidelity, and then you have to be able to wander around the inside. And then the cap ship, if it's a kilometre long, that means we have to model a kilometre's worth of internal systems. And it's not just that. And it's not just some sort of we'll just make some rooms. It's like, no, it has to actually function and work. So everything we do, we actually have to concept out, and we spend months basically going, well, if this is, this is the missile launcher is here. So how's it going to work? Because we're not just going to we don't want it to be just like, well, there's a missile launcher that just fires missiles and they just can keep on coming forever. It's like, no, actually, so we have to have a whole system in place. So we know actually how to load the ship. So we know where, when you land, they get loaded into, how they're transferred into the armory, from the armory, how they're transported up into the actual missile launcher so you can fire them. So that's the level we're doing. And also you have to have a level of and then what happens if the automatic operation shuts down? There needs to be a manual thing, because if it jams, then we even have stuff like where because we want lots of human interaction in what we do, and so there's places that actually where as a player you go and maybe unjam it, you do stuff where you operate a console and so forth and all these sort of things, and so it just and so when you create stuff like this, you're talking about many man years just on one ship, and it's that sort of level that we're pushing up and we're really creating and just trying to make and then and also we make the maps bigger and so forth. We're making we move to stuff like PBR and so forth to get better visual qualities, a load of this sort of stuff, and it all comes with a cost. But with the money coming in, then we can just keep on making these calls and we can keep on just improving, and we can also staff up faster and get more in. I mean, originally, but when I joined for Christmas, we're talking about, well, I'll probably bring my studio to about 30 guys. We're probably going to be about more like 50 now. But also as we look at what we're trying to do, and then of course we're pushing the scope of making it so much better, then you need these people, and then of course you do a lot of outsourcing. So then all of a sudden you have to have management you don't want people to work for 6 months on something. You need to make sure that someone's actually on top of that and making sure it's happening. So you have to make sure the right people are there. So you have to hire people to do that. And then the production side, obviously, because we work with so many studios, and we're kind of production light because we're just trying to run, be lean with the budget. But now we've had to bring the whole production structure to make sure that communication between studios is working really well. There's people chasing stuff up and all things like that. So it all just all comes at a cost. But the cool thing is the money we get, it just goes straight back into the development of it, and that's kind of really nice. We just don't have the overheads that publishers have, and and that kind of stuff like that. So
all the money goes, and I mean, I would say, it's just a level of fidelity. So, like for instance, the cap ships, right? So, command and control on cap ships, all the different stations, what you can do now. Like when we were talking back in E3 with the 25 million or whatever, that was going to be like after we're out, and then I'll go back and we'd do this pass where you would or increase the functionality for cap ships. But now with this money, we're talking about what we needed for Squadron 42, and we're like, oh, you know what, let's do it because we can afford to do it now.
And that's a huge deal. I mean, working on that stuff. So,
yeah, it's like a whole other game inside a game, right? And then things like we're investing money in procedural generation to do, to be able to try and deal with the vast amount of content that we have to do, and that was not something that so we're sort of putting research projects into place now that we probably wouldn't have done in the past. Like on the $25 million version, they weren't part of the menu. We didn't have the resources to do that. So I sort of feel like you get to invest some money now in stuff that's good for the long term of the project. Like sort of buff up a bunch of the detail and features of stuff, so a good example is the cap ship stuff getting far more like sophisticated, and that's what happens, and then just content, like some more ships, some more other stuff, more back-end support server stuff for people to play. I mean, it's, we're fairly scalable because it can go, look, yeah, we've got whatever it is, 41 point something million, and everyone thinks that's a lot of money. But if you talk to most publishers that do their big AAA games, for a big AAA game,
that's a marketing budget.
Yeah, exactly. It is a marketing budget. I mean, they spend $50 million, I think, at least, maybe even 100 now on the Call of Duty, just the development side, and that's just the same game again with some nicer, fancier graphics, right? So this is like a whole. We got flying around in space, and you got the multi-crew ship stuff, the big cap ship stuff, you've got the first-person combat stuff, you've got a huge universe, you've got all these different locations. There's like 450 different environments now for the different landing locations, and we'll probably be expanding that as it goes on. So we can, people could give us $100 million and we can spend it.
At this rate, I think eventually it might happen.
Well, pick a game. That's the thing, is we're not looking at any of this, and like we view all the money up front to kind of just make the experience better and richer for everyone, and that's what I said. The freedom about it is we're not worried about like, is there a market or is there a demand for it, right? I mean, basically the community and the interest pre-launch is dictating the level of ambition of the game. And I know people get worried about feature creep. Well, you're trying to put too much stuff in it, but the beauty of an online game is that you sort of deliver and then you kind of keep on delivering, right? You keep on patching. And so great example is, people have the hanger on their machines. They're going to get the dogfight module very soon, and obviously we do patches along the way. So it doesn't mean just because we're adding a lot more, like, say this cap ship stuff, right? Well, that, maybe that takes a bit longer than we thought. That doesn't mean we're not going to deliver just the dogfighting or some of the other stuff because we haven't got the cap, and that's what would happen with feature creep. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it just means that when the money comes, when you get more money up front, it just sort of means that you have a better sense, like a guarantee, it will happen. It may not happen tomorrow, but they've got the funds to do this kind of thing. And so it's good for us. I mean, it's nice for us to see that, like, we still every month, we get 10 to 15,000 more people join. So it's healthy. I mean, our community is continuing to grow, and hopefully we'll have when we launch, it'll be pretty significant. I mean, it's already, I think, a pretty big number, especially considering how early we are in the process.
Right. Wouldn't it just be easier to make like a match 3 game or something? Because it seems really complicated.
Like a match 3 game?
Just like a Bejeweled clone or something. Because here's the question that I have for you. Because I love the detail that's added to everything, and I think that there are obviously a lot of people who do as well. But it reminds me of EVE Online. Whenever you read about EVE Online now in mainstream press or whatever, it's always about those huge political battles and these huge daunting things that the new player never sees. The new player, it will take them months and months to get to that point. So sometimes there's a fear that perhaps it actually keeps people away. And there's so much detail associated with the game. Do you feel like it's very complicated and it might scare some people who think it looks interesting?
So I would say no. I mean, so one of the detail that we're trying to add is that visceral, detail up close, right? So that first person, that's what you don't have in EVE. That's my issue with EVE is, especially as a beginning player, you don't have any of the big ships. It's very I got my little ship, and it's all very pulled back, and there's a lot of UI where there's lots of numbers and screens, and so it doesn't. I don't feel like it's hard for me to get into that world. Whereas with us, even you've got nothing, you've got the Aurora, you've got nothing else. You're going to be there, and you've got your ship, and you can get into it. And you can walk around the environment, so you can feel it. You can take your ship, take off into space, and fly around. So I sort of feel like on that level, it's far more welcoming than say something like EVE Online is. And we're deliberately setting up we talk about all these different systems and simulation, and we're going to GeForce and all the rest of the stuff that we do. But we're definitely setting it up in such a way that the base play experience is much more like Wing Commander, where it's simple. You don't have to know all this stuff, and the ship's intelligent flight control system sort of handles it all for you, and you just fly and you just go, okay, I want to push out and let I want to go at this speed, and it's just doing it all for you, and you can just shoot. But the difference between what we have now and say what Wing Commander was, because that's what Wing Commander was in the old days, is that we're simulating everything on the side. So all the shooting and flying around is different systems, the thrusters and the flight control, figuring out what it's going to do, and there's power going between all these systems, and it's not scripted or anything. So like, you want to dig down into it, you want to turn off the safety modes, and you want to turn the dials on all these things, we're going to let you do that. And like, if a wing gets blown off and your center mass changes, it will affect your flight model. So all this stuff sort of falls out of the system, and we sort of cover it up at the top level to just let people just have simple fun. But they want to dive down, they can. And I kind of liken that to, say, like, StarCraft 2, whatever, is like, you can play it with just a mouse and click around, but you want to get competitive and try and beat other people, you probably have to know all the shortcuts on the keyboard and stuff like that. So Star Citizen is very much set up that way. So initial experience should be pretty fun and welcoming and not daunting, but once you get into it and really get addicted, you can sort of like really sort of start taking off the safeties and pulling back the sheets and playing around and tweaking a lot more stuff. So I think that's kind of what I think is that's the right way to make a game. Is that there was a sort of famous Trip Hawkins quote which was pretty good, which was, if I remember correctly, it was sort of simple to learn and difficult to master, right? And it's all about the fact that up front it's pretty easy to play, but then there's a lot of complexity in systems that once you get into, you can sort of feel like, it's challenging. You get into it and you sort of start to feel like, oh, okay, I figured out how to use this extra part of the flight mode, and I use that quite well, and that helps me fight a little better. So, we talk about a lot of systems, but always the core idea of the design is to make the front-end simple experience be like as easy as possible, and then all these extra things are optional for you. And I think that was kind of my fundamental goal with Wing Commander 2 was it wasn't a difficult game to play it. It didn't feel like a hardcore flight sim when you flew it. And even though we do a lot of simulation in Star Citizen, it shouldn't feel like a hardcore flight simulator at the beginning. Now, if you want to like tweak everything like you would in a hardcore flight simulator, we will let you do that. And that's the difference between Star Citizen and, say, Wing Commander.
So the dogfighting module is coming out fairly soon after PAX, or after PAX is what we heard.
Yep.
What is it that people should expect out of that?
3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, the dogfighting module, we're basically going to let people. We've integrated it onto our website, so we have leaderboards, and you can play. So we've got, I think, 5 different game modes. So one we call Battle Royale, which is sort of a free for all. One that's sort of a team deathmatch. One that's Capture the Flag, which we call Capture the Core. There's a Vandal Swarm, which is basically a horde mode of waves of AI, and then there's sort of a free flight mode where you can just sort of fly around and look at stuff. And those are sort of the 5 basic game modes, and then you can join of the sort of head-to-head combat ones. You can join those and combat ones and get ranked, and the rankings will go onto our leaderboards on the webpage, and they're also tied to your organization. And there'll be 2 different environments you can fly in, and the first drop of the dogfight is with the single-seater ships. So the initial single-seater pledge ships was the Aurora, the Hornet, and the 300i, so they'll be available right away. Then we'll be shortly after, whenever the assets are ready, because it just takes a lot of work to, one thing to have it in your hangar, but the other thing to have all the LODs and damage dates and all the rest of the stuff. Then I think it'll be the Cutlass and the Avenger, and then we'll go back to the variants of the Hornet and the Aurora and the 300i, and then you'll sort of have the full set of single-seater ships by that time. And then the second drop, Dogfight V2, is the multi-crewed ships where you'll be able to, like the Constellation of Freelancer, where more than one person, you walk around in the ship in combat, and that will be later this year, probably after Gamescom.
We talked a little bit at E3 about the concepting and developing and building of a ship costs like $30,000 is the number we were talking about.
Yeah, much more than that.
Yeah. At the time, you were working with $25 million, so I guess you had to scale it back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, also because that was sort of talking about what it took to just put it in the hangar. But there's a lot more work that goes on, because like when it becomes sort of combat ready, so to speak, we've got to do all the damage states and do all the LODs. So I haven't done an estimate recently, but it's a lot more effort now than I was. Originally it was like, I think, 30,000 for the smallest ship and about 100,000 for the biggest ship, and I would say you're probably at least double that. to get one of these ships
And
into the game.
I think the capital ships will be a lot more than that.
Because they're just big.
So, Erin, you're the guys that you're working with in the UK are working on the environments, or the environments that were in the demo that we saw on Thursday.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through the process on how that works? I mean, obviously there's so much fine detail in the ships, and there's so much, every little thing that moves, and even as as you move in first person, it's happening in the third person. But how do you put that much detail into the environment?
I mean, it's the same sort of level of you do. You just basically make sure that the level you're building them at, it's basically as realistic as possible. The texture detail, a lot of work went into the PBR on them to basically, basically make them feel really sort of realistic. And then we kind of the process will be, when you make an environment like that, you need to, we're trying to work out what you need. So we need a contained environment. You need elements in the environment which are obviously the player, about almost like a map for the player, so anywhere in the environment they can see where they are and know where to go and so forth, and then you just basically create these elements for that. And so like in the Dying Star map, we've got a huge sort of space station structure in the middle, which is a nice iconic piece and stuff like that, and then you just basically go into that level of detail and fidelity. And then it's also, a lot of it's about the visual effects, so you put a huge amount of we spent a lot of time working on debris, basically when you shoot debris coming off asteroids, a lot of time on the graphics programming spent on cool effects for the nebula, the lighting, obviously, getting that stuff ready. Worked with there's another guy in the UK called Rowan, who basically worked on the lighting for the levels and so forth and things like that. And so you just basically bring the whole package together, and then of course you get it there, and then it's then Chris obviously guides the sort of look and feel he wants, which is a sort of very cinematic, realistic look and feel, because you can go different ways with it. You can go the sort of more sort of sort of more sort of primary, more sort of maybe not comic book, but that kind of sort of feel.
Like the Blizzard look.
Yeah,
the Blizzard looks sort of more like a little slightly more saturated, it's a little more like stylized, right? Like the StarCraft looks are very sort of stylized.
Those environments, they look so fantastic. It almost looks like they're skyboxes, but. Are the environments like a living and breathing environments where I know you have seen asteroids, but how about the backgrounds in the Dying Star? Like what interactive
Well, it's a combination. Well, the Dying Star
are?
itself is a real 3D object, but obviously the very background stuff, that's a space box, really. It's not a skybox, but
because you're in space.
Because you're in space, and you have to worry about all view angles.
Yeah.
Skyboxes just tend to be sort of a hemisphere. But like all the asteroids, all the celestial objects tend to be simulated. So like in our star systems, like in the proper game, when you fly around, probably what we said is you'll just have a distant sort of space box, which will, we're looking at doing ways to sort of like have our system simulated, and then sort of have a rendering system that can render basically your space box from your system, and anyone that would. So that's kind of one of the procedural generation stuff that we're looking at, where you'd like render the galaxy out, and then you'd be able to put the camera in this star system and say, well, the space box in this star system would be this. And so you'd have that, and then you would all the different, like the planets or the asteroid fields, they're all actual modeled objects, and then you also add in areas, like in the areas there's like nebula gas and stuff like that, so you have some volumetric sort of fields, so to speak, particles that we have. So we have sort of
asteroid field, storms, it's just kind of like that.
There's going to be a whole bunch. There's going to be a lot. There'll be some variety in terrain, essentially, in space. I mean, that was one thing that Freelancer, I think, definitely pioneered, was like that sort of space idea of space terrain, where it wasn't just everything was black. It was like there was sort of these different environments you could feel. It was obviously a bit more sort of cartoony in Freelancer, because that was when we showed it, 1999, but. We're going to try and make space itself feel kind of like fun. I mean, like you should be able to play like hide and seek in an asteroid field, and hide behind an asteroid and shield your radar image from someone else, and then surprise them as they come past you, that kind of thing.
Speaking to the detail of the ship, can you walk me through the timeline of conceptualizing and actually developing even the smallest ship, just to give people an idea of how long this process takes of development. People think that you get your money and you guys hit a button and the money generates a video game.
Basically, you start off with the concept first, which can be anything from 2D image. We actually like to we prefer to concept in 3D, and so actually the good stuff. But basically, you come up with sort of like the idea. So first off, you basically have to have so let's say the Vandal. You basically come up with a whole board of what's the style behind the Vandal, and that takes a while because we have to agree on it. What's the look and feel going to be like for all the ships, and then you have to make sure it's consistent. So you start off with that, and if it's the UEE ships, then there's different manufacturers. So every manufacturer has a way they build ships, or the look and feel, kind of like if you're an Audi or a BMW. So you've got to do all that stuff. So you start with that, and that can take a number of weeks, maybe a month or so, just to make sure you're happy with that.
Like our small ships, maybe with our guys, the concept guys, will be about 10 working days. That's about 2 weeks. The bigger ships will be longer than that. It'd be like maybe 20, 25 working days. So that's just the conceptual side. And actually, we're doing the Next Great Starship right now, where we're kind of doing that, and it's a competition, and we have all these people competing to basically design have a starship be in Star Citizen, and they're sort of going through the process publicly while getting feedback from like different members of like our dev team that are involved in doing those kind of things. And then I would say, the building of the ship, once you've got the conceptual signed off, can run anywhere from 2 to 3 months, all the way up to probably 6+ months. So the really big ones will be like 6 months, and they will have a lot of people. I mean, the Idris right now, which has sort of been off and on because we've done some redesign, at one point had 17 artists working on it. So that's a lot. Okay. That's why it's going to cost. That's why it's costing a lot more than $100,000. But typically, I would say like the modeling and so on a small ship, probably you could say 10 days conceptual. The modeling sort of texturing process is probably on a small ship. This isn't the bigger ones. 2 to 3 months, and then there's probably about a month or 2 weeks to a month of rigging in the engine, and that doesn't include all the damage states and LODs. And so the damage states and LODs is probably another month after that. And that's just a small ship. And that's more than one person working on it too.
So in terms of there's a lot of stuff on the website, or a lot of different kinds of content people can buy. Do you have a general idea of what is generally the most popular? Ships. In terms of, is there a specific type or manufacturer that's...
Well, so the Aurora, which is the cheapest ship, is by far the most numerous ship that we have, because that's the one that, I think it's $35 or something. The ship that has probably generated the most amount of revenue for us has been the Constellation, because that's the multi-crewed ship, and it's the most expensive of the basic ships, but it's the one that 4 people can fly, and it's significantly more expensive than the Aurora. But basically, the order, which kind of goes with prices, is Aurora, 300i, then the Hornet, and then after that, I think it's a close run thing between the Avenger and the Freelancer in terms of popularity. Then the Cutlass, and then it sort of goes to the Constellation in terms of ships that people have bought.
With the in-game content for people to purchase, is the focus? I know that you also sell credits, but those credits can be used towards content for the ships. What other kind of content is going to be available for people if they want to purchase it?
Well, basically, our only model is that you can buy the ships, or you can buy some UEC, and the UEC ultimately is what you should be earning in the game. And then once you're earning in the game, you don't need to get some UEC first, but it's sort of a pay for convenience thing. So we sort of recognize there'll be some people that play the game, like, okay, you're a new dad, and you got 4 hours on the weekend. You don't have 20 hours to be flying around, earning money. You may want to get some, this cool new ship, a cool new weapon. So you kind of want to use some real life money to get some, in-universe money. So for me, the important core is you don't disadvantage any one group, right? So there's always this argument about, I don't want pay for win, But typically that argument is from people that have lots of time but no money. And then the people that have lots of money and no time, what are they doing? So I think what you want to have is a situation where neither group gets disadvantaged. So you should never have anything in a game that you can only buy with money that gives you an advantage. That's bullshit. You shouldn't have that, right? But I also think it's bullshit that you put someone in a situation that they have to put 50 hours of gameplay in to get this one thing. If there's someone that can't do that, and it's not going to necessarily affect. I mean, we'll definitely have some stuff that you can only earn through gameplay, but in some of the basic stuff, like I think if someone doesn't have as much time and they want to contribute some money to buy some credits so they can buy a new gun for their ship because they don't have the time to go and do enough trade runs to do it. And by the way, we're not going to have any grinding like the normal grind. I mean, the whole core of the freelancers privateer game was going between planets and earning money doing stuff. So that's kind of the fun part of the game. So if you're not doing it, you're sort of losing out on part of it. Mm-hmm. But some people may not have the time to do that for all the stuff. So we're just going to allow them the option to buy some credits, and we're going to limit it so you can't buy an infinite amount of credits. But yeah, I mean that's it. We're just going to leave it to the credits, and you'll always be able to earn the credits just playing the game and having fun in the game, and there'll be nothing that you can buy that you can't get in game. And in fact, there'll be some in-game stuff that you can only get by finding it or playing it and stuff like that.